you guys have no idea what happens like right before we push record. We're just mid conversation, and then it's just like, okay, let's do it, and then boom, record, and it
falls into place.
It somehow we all just magically turn it on and smile and welcome to the DVC show.
That's what you think it sounds like.
I just can't take my eyes off your flannel, Paul. It looks like you're. It's like one of those brain teasers. You're kind of like.
Do you have an axe in the garage that you could pose with for just a minute?
Like no. Paul Bunyan?
Maybe
a shovel.
Maybe a shovel. No axes.
Wow. That's a cold open.
Or a hot open, whatever you want to call it. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. I am your flannel host, Paul Krieger, joined by always, I can't talk, my wife, Amy. We got Sean Sakari.
Sean Sakari?
I don't even know anymore. And,
wait, what do I usually say? Welcome
Jeff's
home.
Here.
Goodbye.
There you go. Happy show. Yay. Welcome to the show.
Hold up.
This is only the second show of the night, so I will tell you in advance, please tune in next week. It should be really good because we are already just off the rails and slap happy, and I don't even know what we're talking about.
This is not supposed to be the fun show, but I have a feeling.
I hope so, because
this topic is riveting.
It needs some fun injected into it. Because today we're talking about, and I apologize for not writing down the name, but I believe it was during the Polynesian grand opening or something. I was speaking with a gentleman, and we were talking about timeshares. And that is that scary word associated with Disney Vacation Club that everyone kind of backs off and goes, wait a minute, it's a timeshare? What? And so I wrote down a note that said we need to do a show that discusses the difference between Disney Vacation Club and kind of your traditional timeshare product, the one that your Uncle Billy bought or Jeff Haslam bought, one of the two. And they can't get rid of it, and they hate timeshare now. And so they're the ones that when you say, hey, we're interested in this thing called Disney Vacation Club, they tell you to run for the hills. Yeah, they tell you run in the opposite direction as quickly as possible. So we took down some notes, and I know all of us kind of have an interesting perspective to kind of provide a little bit about the differences between Disney Vacation Club and that traditional timeshare product that you know, love, and hate. Before we get into it, as always, this and all of our DVC fan content is brought to you by the world of DVC. DVC Resale Market, where you can buy or sell a Disney Vacation Club contract. Monera Financial, who can help in financing that DVC resale contract purchase. And the DVC Rental Store, where you can try before you buy, rent some points, or rent out your own points. I don't know what's happened to me. I feel like it's been a long day.
Okay,
I've been talking a lot.
I'll give you a break. So this is my first experience of a timeshare that I remember.
I don't know that I've ever heard this, so I'm excited.
Oh, well, no, it's not really. Okay, so you and I went to a Billy Joel concert with your mom at, what was the arena in Pittsburgh that was at? Do you remember? It was inside.
It was probably Console Energy. Now PPG Arena.
Okay, yes, okay. And when we walked in there was like this sign-up thing where you could win tickets to like all kinds of concerts.
I somewhat remember this now.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I'm going to sign up. And what it really was a ploy for a company, I think it was called Sundance Vacations or I'm going to look that up. I feel like it was Sundance or something along those lines. And for the next,
I think so,
like 2 years, they called and hounded me about coming in for a timeshare presentation. And I was like so perturbed by the whole thing. I will never sign up for a contest in a random arena for as long as I live.
I have heard people that have gone on these tours before. Have any of you ever actually gone on one?
I have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my experience is that, they get you in there. It's all fun and games. They show you things. But then if you want to leave and get your free concert tickets or gift, it's like they lock the door and you're going to talk to 12 managers, supervisors, and other people. And they're going to be really mad if you just leave in some capacity. Jeff, tell us your story, because I'm interested in this.
So to be clear, I never bought an RCI timeshare. And Amy's going to kill me for telling this story, but she and her ex-husband bought an RCI timeshare. They went to Vegas and bought this thing, and then I think they decided to divorce that same weekend. So Amy got stuck with said timeshare, and I came in later and overtook his half of it and finished paying it off. But I myself, so anybody that's ever been to Vegas, they are ruthless down there. The timeshare salespeople, you think Derek is bad? These guys are like 10 times worse. And they're stationed at the door of every casino, every hotel down there, and they get you just like Krieger said. Hey, how long are you guys going to be in town? Do you want to see a free show? And they pull out their Cirque du Soleil tickets and out of their overcoat and wave them around a little bit. And so you're like, oh, free show tickets. Yeah, I'll go. And so they put you in the van and they drive you out to the timeshare that's nowhere near anything.
Down by the river.
How many times have I heard they put you in the van?
Yeah, you know what? There's a theme to my stories. I should probably start getting the people's van.
I was going to say, this is the second week we're talking about Las Vegas. We're leading with Las Vegas. We ended a couple weeks ago with Las Vegas.
I know. I'll keep it PG this time. But you sit through and they tell you all the things, and these are all the places that you can use it, and this is how much it costs, and it all sounds great, but I don't want it. And they're like, well, how about we do this? And then they lower the price a little bit, and it's just like a car dealer. They're worse than a car dealer. Anyway, back and forth, but you finally say, no, I just want to go. Where's my free show tickets? And it's like Paul said, they don't lock the door, but you're not leaving because they drove you there. They've got you as long as they really want to have you until you really, really get belligerent with them. But it was 4 hours of my day.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually left without my show tickets because I was that done, and I just called an Uber. Some other people did wait around, and we talked to them later actually, because we ended up being friends with them. They did end up getting a show ticket, but it was not an easy process. And they basically had to threaten a lawsuit before they let him out of the room. So I've never had that experience at Disney. I'll just say that.
Could you imagine? Derek locks the door.
Hey,
cracking his knuckles
on the cruise ship.
I will share something that probably you guys don't even know, but of course, a lot of people know that, of course, I worked at Disney for a really long time, like 20-some years. Then, of course, came over to the DVC resale market with Nick. I've been here like 6 years or whatnot. There was a time when, in between my time at Disney and me working for the DVC resale market, that they weren't quite ready for me here yet. So it was like kind of like a 6-month span where I was like, well, I just don't want to do anything for like 6 months. I had some friends that worked at another vacation ownership program that's, of course, many people know the names. I don't know if I need to say the name of it, but he, of course, knew me. He was friends, and he was with Disney as well for a while, and now he went over there. He's like, hey, I hear you're looking for something. Like, we'd love to have you come over here. You'd love this job. So I was like, hey, you know what? Why not? It's like 6 months. It's on Disney property per se. It's like, how much can I describe without people realizing exactly what it is? But I was there for about 6 months. And of course, my whole upbringing and my whole training and everything I've ever done is Disney and Disney service and Disney cast and treating the guests and all of that when it comes to Disney Vacation Club. Jeff couldn't have put it more perfectly. It just is night and day. I mean, my poor little 6'4" head would just explode every single day when I would just hear about how we're supposed to talk to guests and how these folks coming in. I was in charge of meeting with folks that came in for what's called a member update, right? So anybody out there, and I know you can put in the comments, if you've got another timeshare, you know that you're not done when you buy it, because every time you use it, they're going to want you to come in for what's known as that member update, right? Where it's a free breakfast and whatnot. The member update was basically how to get you to, upsell your membership. But it wasn't like Disney where they do it where, hey, come on in, here's the new resorts. If you have any questions, if you want to see the rooms, blah, blah, blah. It was just like Jeff said. Man, it was brutal. I mean, these people would come in at like 7:30 in the morning under the guise of a free breakfast, and they would sit with people, like Jeff said, for hours and hours. And it was one of those things where you wind up, I would hear things being told to folks that just weren't even true, to almost using like these fear tactics to get them to upgrade. And I don't know if your membership's going to work for future trips unless you upgrade to this package versus what you have now. And it was like, oh my God, I need to go back to my wonderful world of Disney timeshare because this is just not me. So I know what it's like. And it can be, again, I don't want to say anything bad because we've met a lot of great people that love whatever clubs that they have. And they love the rooms and they love it. They've always had it. More power to them. I'm just talking about, like Jeff said, to the experience of A, learning about it, or B, which was my experience there for about 6 months, was, when you're already an owner of another timeshare, you're never, quote unquote, kind of done with it. They're always trying to upsell you. So yeah, I still have some PTSD from my time of working over there.
Panda, before we started, you said that you had a family member that also had a...
Yeah, my past experience with learning from my family is bad experiences with timeshare. And that was before I bought DVC. And I never looked at DVC as timeshare. I still don't. It's hard to make the connection after what I've witnessed. But my sister and her extended family, she has 4 daughters. They all have children. And they bought a place called Villa Roma, which at the time, apparently when they bought it maybe 15 years ago, it was like really good Italian food and the place was immaculately kept. And as the years went on, all I heard was complaints from my sister that they didn't even want to go anymore. They wanted to unload it. The amount of money that it was costing them was ridiculous. And when I went to DVC, I never connected. Oh my God, it's like that. And I think it's because it's Disney World. The infrastructure is not going to change that much. I mean, apart from them getting bought by Apple or something one day and changing, I don't see it changing much. Whereas other timeshares, I guess, you don't know what's going to happen.
No, yeah, you definitely don't. And other timeshares are the scary ones that you've associated with that word timeshare. And Derek would probably remind me to remind you all that legally we do have to tell you the Disney Vacation Club is a timeshare. By the state of Florida, they call it a timeshare. It is a timeshare. That is what it's classified as. But I think there is a fine line between what is the traditional timeshare and what is Disney Vacation Club. There are similarities in kind of how they work, and that's kind of evolved more in time. And I think it's really kind of been what has Disney Vacation Club done successfully that other companies maybe have integrated into their product a little bit. Yeah. But traditional timeshares has always been purchasing the right to use a specific property for a designated period of time each year. I think, the thing you're most familiar with, we were talking to my uncle the other day, and it's like, I own week 37 at Virginia Beach Resort, and every week 37 I can go there, or I can rent out my week 37, or I can exchange it with someone else who might want my week with a different week. But this is a deeded timeshare that they have forever. We're not talking about life. We're not talking about a limited contract period or anything of that sort. Most timeshares originally were kind of just this deeded property. So could you imagine what that building might look like 100 years from now? Like that blows my mind right there. And people balk at the concept of like, oh, Disney is only a 50-year product or something. But I'm like, I don't know that I want to see the maintenance and annual dues fees on an 100-year building, because I know what's wrong with Boardwalk already. And 2 years ago, the entire second floor flooded.
Yeah.
It's just...
And we would, in that Disney training, when you're learning to be a Disney Vacation Club guide, that is always addressed, head on. Is, you try to answer, kind of objections before they come up. So you'd be kind of trained to talk to people and say, now you might be wondering, why does this product expire, in 2060, versus my uncle has a Hilton timeshare or a Hyatt timeshare and they get it forever. And you literally would ask those people and say, that's fantastic, but do you really care what the Hilton timeshare in Kissimmee looks like in the year 3098? I mean, no one cares, So at Disney, we were always taught, which I still do to this very day, is say, listen, wouldn't you rather have, say, 30 to 40 years of hands down the best vacations possible versus 3,000 years of mediocre ones? I always love that line.
Did you have like, in terms of like your training at Disney Vacation Club, like did you have like a comparison sheet or something where it was like, this is your traditional timeshare, this is Disney Vacation Club, and like?
Yeah, I mean, not like per se. Okay, if someone owns Wyndham, or if someone owns Hyatt, or if someone owns Hilton, it was just, that's probably the biggest objection that people that own those timeshares would say is, yeah, but mine, I get it forever. And so you're like, you have to address it and say, well, why is it like this? And you literally would just answer that question and be like, honestly, we don't know what the world's going to look like next year, let alone in the year 2042, 2050, 2068. We just don't know. So that's when you stress, make every vacation count versus that typical, oh, I got this and I got to use it. No one wants to use it. Or there's nickel and diming you with the fees. I sent my friend to go use it and they had to pay a guest fee. Or if I didn't use it, I had to pay to bank my point. So that's, and I know we'll talk about it later, but there's so many, nickel and diming when it comes, that when you learn about other programs, you realize and go, my God, like there is no hidden fees with Disney Vacation Club, like none. There's no, hey, you didn't tell me I had to pay that. They're very upfront, as we are. Like,
yeah,
cost we ain't gonna surprise you. We ain't gonna surprise you.
Derek, that's so important. When we check out a DVC, literally, you give them nothing. When my sister would check out a Villa Roma, there was problems. I mean, they owed a lot of money that they didn't realize they were going to owe.
Yeah, there's a lot of those hidden fees baked into these things. We take for granted banking and borrowing as Disney Vacation Club members. A lot of other timeshares, if you borrow, you're going to pay upfront the annual dues right now for those points. There's also going to be a fee on top of that for borrowing points, or just and the maintenance fees and the annual dues for those resorts, I think, are always the thing that take families and just make them step back. And just imagine, this is the one that I always go back to. Imagine that you are, a son or a daughter of someone, and your parents or your grandparents pass away. And all of a sudden, this timeshare bill shows up in your name because they deeded this timeshare to you, or it was in their will that you received that timeshare. There's nothing you can do. Like, at that point, it is yours, and now you are responsible for that.
How do you visit that responsibility on someone else that didn't accept it? I don't even understand.
There are like steps you can take to remove the responsibility from yourself, but it isn't like it takes.
I want to rebuke Aunt Edna's gift.
There's a process, and there are companies that will charge you an arm and a leg to go through that process.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah,
you hear it on Sirius XM, right? Get rid of your timeshare.
Yep.
We looked at getting rid of ours, and it was going to cost us about $1,200 just to rid ourselves of it. Where our annual dues, I just got the bill. It's January. I think it's like $450 for the year, which isn't horrible. And if we actually used it, it's probably worth the money. It's
horrible if you're not using it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When's the last time you guys used it, Jeff?
It was the year before COVID. We used it here in Orlando.
It's like 2019.
Oh my gosh, it's been that many years?
Yeah.
You've been paying annual dues on it and haven't been able to use it?
And paying to bank my points. I have so many points.
You have to pay to bank them?
Yes. Yep.
Now,
so do you want me to delve into that right now, Paul?
Yes.
Go.
Okay. So ours is with RCI. Now, what most people, they hear RCI, they hear timeshare. That's both true and false. We own 1 week at the Grand View Hotel in Las Vegas. Our week is in April. And we don't have to do anything to use that week. We can just show up, and that's our week. We don't have to do anything. That's just our week. But if we want to exchange that, RCI then becomes the broker, I guess you'd want to call it, or the middleman. All they're doing is gathering everybody else's points and exchanges and divvying them out to people who want to use them. So we don't own an RCI timeshare. We own it the Grandview, but if we want to exchange, we have to exchange into the RCI collection. our points transfer into RCI at about, I think it's 45,000 a year, 45,000 points a year, which sounds like a ton. I think right now I'm sitting on about 150,000, and like a week in Orlando at the Grand Point, I think's about 28,000 to 30,000. So it's not a lot of points. It just sounds like a lot. But in order to exchange that into RCI, you have to pay a $250 exchange fee. If we're not using, like if we say, hey, Panda, do you want to use our timeshare in Hawaii? We have to pay the $250 exchange fee plus $185 to have a guest use it. Plus they have to pay maintenance fees like housekeeping. I think it's $45 a night or something like that.
They still have to pay $45 a night.
Yeah. For housekeeping. So that's how ours works. And now here's the thing. So when it works well, it's actually, we've used it in Orlando more than we've used it anywhere else. Well, Orlando and Vegas, because we've exchanged it into some of the other Vegas properties because they have some that are directly on the strip. Ours is like 5 miles past the airport in no man's land. But when you can find availability, I actually don't hate it. And when we would come down here and we couldn't stay on Disney property, or maybe we were doing a Universal trip or something, it's easy to find. There's a million of them down here that you can exchange into. But we used it in Hawaii once, and it was hard because we had to wait until about 3 months out in order to use it, because it's based on availability. It's only available kind of like Disney if somebody trades their points in for something else, so that week becomes available. And so we had to book a cash room and then hope that an RCI would become available, and then we could cancel our cash room. It's difficult. They sell you huge on all-inclusives, Dominican Republic, Cancun, Cabo, super cheap on paper. Like you look at it and you're like, oh, I can stay there for like 5,000 points. But they don't tell you have to pay the all-inclusive fee if you want to eat there. And the all-inclusive fee is, every time I've looked at it, every single time has been $200 more than just getting the room through their website direct, rather than doing the RCI trade in.
Oh my gosh.
So, that's where it gets frustrating. But like what we've jokingly talked about going to Dollywood and going to Pigeon Forge and, Memphis, there's some great places there, and it's $250 to transfer, and it's very easy to do that. But some of the places that you would want to go, Hawaii, Caribbean, Mexico, there's never availability. If it is, it's like 3 days. You can never get a week, and it costs you $400 or $500 to do it on top of your fees. It's almost always cheaper just to get the cash room.
And and that's a great point, Jeff, too. And I think someone mentioned it and said, timeshares are terrible if you're not going to use them. Like, those are the people that complain about saying how horrible they are. Before I bought my Disney Vacation Club, our friends back outside Chicago, we would use their timeshare. This is before we had kids. They had this crazy thing called a timeshare. We didn't have one. But my God, the vacations that we would take down to St. Martin multiple times at a place called Oyster Bay and stay in these 2 bedrooms right on the ocean. We'd use it to go up to Wisconsin Dells, which is fantastic, and stay in these cottages in Wisconsin Dells. We used it down in Gatlinburg for them. So we were already like, man, this timeshare stuff is great. They loved it because they used it. So that's where we already kind of fell in love with the concept of one day we're going to get one, because we loved staying not in regular hotel rooms. And that's kind of the thing, is once you get that little taste, once you put the needle in and you're like, oh my God, I never want to go stay in a regular hotel room again. That's where, for us, when DVC came into the picture, it was like, oh my God, it's the best of both worlds. Like, we love Disney. We know we're going to come here. We don't have to stay anymore in regular hotel rooms at Disney. So you have the best of timeshare. Plus, it's super easy, because I think Jeff was talking about, with the points and stuff. Like, my friends would talk about that. We're like, we have 3.2 million points that we use over here. But then if we want to use it here, it's only 156,000. But we attended an update, and they gave us this like gold key that we could use on a yacht, like to go all around the world, if we chose to do that. And I was like, what are you even talking about? So Disney, at the end of the day, it's the best of timeshares, hands down, bar none, because it's simple.
And to that point, when we used it that last time in Orlando, just like Derek was saying, and I'd never personally dealt with this before. Nobody had ever called, but we checked in, and about an hour later, we got the phone call saying, "Hey, you didn't get your free gift at the front desk." I'm like, "Oh,
wow, free gift.
Nice! They're giving free gifts to the people that own here." I walked my happy butt down there, and it was, "Oh, come into our room." I'm like, no. I'm not going into your room. I'm not getting in your van."
Jeff, here's a question.
Yeah.
RCI or Grandview, do you have a website available to check availability, or do you have to call every time?
Nope, it's rci.com. You can jump on there and you can search anywhere in the world.
So Disney isn't exclusive with this way that we have it.
Very easy. And
and Disney used to use RCI before Interval as like the exchange
partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've gone back and forth over the years between RCI and Interval International, and both of these companies solely exist for this purpose. So, Jeff, I don't know if you ever saw Disney Vacation Club properties come up on the RCI portal, but I imagine it was like the golden goose, and it was like, click, 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 get it.
Actually, there was usually almost always availability on RCI, but it was always Saratoga Springs.
Mm-hmm. Like a one-bedroom in Saratoga,
Yep.
The resort of last resorts.
And interestingly, Panda, you talk about you don't consider DVC a timeshare. We dealt with this a lot in Utah. The reason they call it that, just from a real estate point of view, is because you don't own any room, right? You own like this much of something. Utah, there's a great recreation lake, Lake Powell, down in southern Utah. It's gorgeous. It's in all the movies. It's massive, one of the biggest lakes in the country. And people timeshare their houseboats all the time. 8 families will go in together and buy this houseboat and exchange weeks, whatever. But you see those for sale all the time, right alongside Disney trips, right alongside, like in the classifieds in Utah. Timeshare this, timeshare that. We'll trade you a week on our houseboat for a week at the ski lodge. You know what I mean? Like, it happens a lot out there.
This makes me think that my dream of Disney Cruise Line, Disney Vacation Club timeshare is maybe there's a small reality.
It's attainable, and it's attainable.
Okay, I have questions. So, Jeff, this Las Vegas hotel that you owned, this is your home resort. When is the last time you actually stayed at that resort?
So we went down there for my friend's 21st birthday. She's 26 now. So 5 years ago was the last time we actually stayed. And that wasn't our home week. That was just,
so you
swapped
had to
it out for later.
to exchange?
You had to pay the $250,
When's the last time you used it without having to pay an extra fee?
I have never used it. I'd have to ask Amy the last time she used it, but I have never used it for that week.
Okay.
And would you call this property deluxe, or would you compare it more to your analogy that you used with the Stratosphere?
No, it's definitely not. It's not that. I'm not sure that I would say deluxe, but I will say they're 2-bedroom units with a living room and a kitchen. Like, they're nice enough. Like, I don't feel there's anything under the bed that would concern me.
Nothing dead
under the bed. Like, I think they're perfectly clean. The pools are great. The ones that we've stayed at, we've never had a bad experience staying at an RCI property. Mm-hmm. They're definitely a couple of rungs below Disney, a couple of rings above La Quinta, probably. I put it on par with a moderate resort with a kitchen kind of a situation. I don't have a problem with the properties. Now, I can't say that that's all inclusive because many people have posted reviews that would say otherwise, but me personally, I never had a bad experience.
Okay, we're gonna research. We're gonna go with Jeff.
I'm not getting in a van. No.
We're gonna go to the Dollywood.
Okay.
And do his timeshare for a week with him.
That's fun.
And we'll do it as a research trip.
Also, we've used it twice on Kauai, so.
Or Hawaii. I had another question and I can't remember what it was.
While you think of your other questions. So, Jeff, just to confirm, you mentioned that this is a specific week that you own at a specific resort in Las Vegas. That is the traditional way that a lot of these timeshare groups have done business. But what we've seen in more recent years is that has evolved more into a points-based system. Mm-hmm. So it's still an ownership interest in a lot of cases in either a specific resort or a group of resorts, and they might sound familiar to what we talked about last year related to the Palmetto Trust that DVC has been playing around with. DVC is in the timeshare business, so if you don't think that they're monitoring what other timeshares are doing and maybe thinking, how do we replicate this in a more viable way, those are discussions that I think have happened with Disney Vacation Club. It is maybe what we see in the future with maybe Palmetto Trust or maybe some other product that Disney Vacation Club does. But you either own at a specific property or a bundle of properties and you inherit points. This is where I do wish all of the timeshare companies had come together and said, this is what the value of 1 point is.
Yeah,
because we talk about we own like 500-ish points for Disney Vacation Club. And Jeff, you just said you have what, 20,000?
No, we have 45,000 a year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm confused already. Thank you.
Yeah.
And good night.
The points are arbitrary.
It sounds like he's really rolling in the points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not.
But I was doing some research before the show, and I was looking at like even Marriott, and now like how Marriott works is like you want to buy a certain number of points based off of the quality of the properties that you want to stay in, or essentially like the exchange options that you have within their portfolio. So the higher package you go, the more likely you are to use their points at their more exotic properties in Hawaii or in the Caribbean or something. Whereas if you don't, you're probably looking at some of their lesser properties, which are still probably great. They're probably the Stratosphere at Las Vegas or something. But they're trying to get you to buy more. It's how do we push you into those higher levels of point packages that range in the hundreds of thousands of points in certain instances.
I think Paul, yeah, and that's a super important point too. Just before I forget, because I'm old, that we would get asked that by folks all the time, like saying, "Hey, so does Disney? Do I get preferential booking if I buy with you? Say I buy at the Grand Floridian, and this is buying direct from Disney. So if I were to buy 1,000 points, right, I get to book before like a family that bought like 150 points, right? Like they would ask that all the time because that's how other timeshares work. And you just summed it up perfectly. And that's with DVC. It doesn't matter. You don't get to book earlier because you have 500 points versus a family that got started with 100 points. Everybody has that exact same booking window. Whereas other timeshares, just like you said, it's like, oh, I get access to this earlier because I have, 84 million points in this certain club. So I can book this room with this view over somebody else that didn't spend more money and buy this package. It's at the same resort, but they get to book earlier or they get preferential treatment. Whereas with DVC, what I've always liked about it is, nobody's treated any different. No one gets to book further out than 11 months out at their home resort than no matter how much money you spend. So that's a big one too. And with the points too, these other companies are switching over to, using the flexible point system that basically Disney started. They ain't switching you over for free, right? So if you want to switch to the easy to use point system, guess what? They're happy to tell you how you can do that at your next member update over the next 4 hours.
Yeah.
A horrible little breakfast. They can show you how you can upgrade and pay to the easy to use point system. Whereas any changes with Disney, in terms of the membership itself, there's no, additional fees per se. So
it's almost like what people have asked for with Disney Vacation Club. And I'm a resale owner. I want to upgrade to member benefits. Is there a fixed fee that I could pay to then upgrade and get that blue card or direct DVCY membership benefits? And other, as you said, Derek, other programs do work that way where you can upgrade in that manner. You can also upgrade to the deluxe or premium or diamond package that gets you access to those more advanced level resorts that you can then pay more money to exchange into. So it's this slippery slope of constantly trying to upsell you. Every time you go back, it's upselling you. And I think Disney Vacation Club, yes, there's always this add-on-itis pressure, and there's always maybe this mindset of, spending more points, but it's not a hard sell. Like Disney, like Derek, you never sat in a room and someone said, "I'm going to pass," and you didn't let them go. Like, you know.
No, that is that again. That's the problem with the other place that when they do
stratosphere.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so true because for us with Disney, when people meet with a Disney Vacation Club guide, whether they're on property and stuff, they're not doing. Yeah, I mean, some might do it because whatever. It's like a member update, and you get like a lithograph, and they show you the model rooms. But like Jeff said, they ain't throwing you into a van, driving you hours outside, blah, 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 locking you in a room, turning the heat on and telling you, and then you got to meet with eight or nine different managers that come in and tell you can't leave, blah, blah, blah. Here, that's what's great about the product, and which is what I've always said. The product speaks for itself. So if you want to add on, you're adding on, not just because you're like, I give up. I just want to see my family again. I've been here for 6 hours. Fine, I'll buy it. Whereas people want to add on because they love it. The club works and they just want to add on points. So that's, I think, the biggest differential, whether you're joining a timeshare for the first time or whether you own one and you're getting a member update, is, for me, the thing that people think about is the word pressure. That is hands down the number one thing. When I would do presentations on those cruise ships and talk to, hey, everybody, welcome on the Disney Fantasy. So by a show of hands, how many folks out there have ever taken a timeshare tour per se, right? People would raise their hands and they literally would be like, I have, like, they're still, in like shell shock from it, wherever it wasn't a good experience. And so that's the difference. That's always the biggest thing for me, is always between this and other timeshares, is the word pressure. And Disney just doesn't have it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and going back to just briefly about the points thing, I logged in while Derek was talking, and so I found a property in Orlando. It's over on the other side of freeway from Disney Springs, kind of by the outlet malls. I've stayed here before. It's perfectly fine. My point cost is, for a 3-bedroom, which is all they had available for the week I looked at, was 62,000 points. So it would take all of this points and then some of last year's, had I banked them, in order to stay that. But it sleeps 12 comfortably, it says. So again, it's not a horrible deal, but then we have to pay $250 plus $25 a night, it looks like, for housekeeping. So
could you imagine if we had to pay $250 every time we switched resorts?
I would have never bought
for DVC.
Never.
No, never.
And the way we book anymore, like, it's rare that we actually book at our home resort. We're always trying different properties, so it's like we would have spent a small fortune in change fees.
I would literally be homeless if I got charged every time I borrowed points. I literally would be homeless. Literally.
Or went to Vero Beach, because that is not your home resort.
Yeah, right.
I go back in my head multiple times to Derek, something you said earlier, which is just about that credibility of the Disney Vacation Club brand and how you felt just for the day or two of maybe even thinking about working for a different company. And this is something that if you have never, if you don't understand anything that we're talking about with the traditional timeshares, I highly, highly recommend you look up The Queen of Versailles. It is a 2012 documentary that was done about the owners of Westgate. And it has a lot more to do about the family than it really does timeshare, but there are some glimpses of timeshare in there, and kind of they highlight some of the sales techniques that they use, and like the raw, like get them pumped up, like, you don't let them leave, you close, like just the meetings that they have with the sales teams before. And
did you know that families that take vacations literally live an extra X amount of years? So when you're out there meeting with that family that came in for Siegfried and Roy tickets, you don't let them leave, because remember, you're just as important as a doctor or a nurse. You are saving a life today. No joke.
That's what yes.
That's how I start every day. Every day I say the same thing to myself.
Derek has watched that too many times. I'm pretty sure Derek is who originally told me to watch it many, many moons ago, because it is definitely worthwhile to actually Yeah, it really gives you a glimpse into timeshare. I will also, we mentioned it on the show before, John Oliver did a special on timeshare on Last Week Tonight one time, and it went into not only timeshare, but it talked a lot about the get out of timeshare quick companies, which I will put a disclaimer here. If you are new to buying Disney Vacation Club, be advised that you may get a mailer or you may get a cold call from one of these get out of timeshare companies because they are just waiting and watching for deeds to be recorded.
Yeah.
And they then send those mailers out and make those cold calls. And it is, it's something that sounds legit, but it is not. And so just be warned that you are going to get those calls.
Do you remember that guy outside of the restaurant at Hilton Head when we were trying to go home? Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that was like the epitome of other timeshares.
And the restaurant closed, so obviously.
No, it wasn't the restaurant's fault, though. It was like a complex that had lots of different places in it. So we ate at Nectar, which that was my favorite restaurant in all of Hilton Head. It's closed now, but the one on the island closed. There's one like for a little further away. Anyways, but it had other places in it. So we walked out, and there's this booth. This is information outside, and they've got like Hilton Head maps and stuff. So you would have thought it was just like a tourism type, you know what I mean? And we did not start a conversation with that person. Mm-hmm. So we were just walking by back to our car. We had breakfast there. We were getting ready. What is it, like an 8-hour drive for us to get home?
Rough. Nah, it's less than that. Six.
Okay. Getting ready to drive 6 hours home. Like, we're ready to go home. And we're walking out, and the guy goes, "Oh, hi, how you guys doing? Where'd you guys stay?" And I just thought he was just like some information map guy. And we're just like, "Oh, we stayed at the Disney resort. Oh, hey, why don't you come and get in my van?" I don't remember exactly what he said, but the whole premise was that he wanted us to go to this. He wouldn't even use the word timeshare, but I knew that's what it was. Mm-hmm. He wanted us to go to this thing, and they were offering us like a Visa gift card. Yeah. And we were like, "Oh, no, thank you." And he was really mean. He looked at us like, "Really?" He said, "Really? You won't go for a gift card?" Like, do we look really hard up?
It was a slow day.
I could not believe the way he looked at us when he was like, "Really? You won't go for a gift card?" Like, do we look that bad?
Throughout life, also, I've always heard of people having a hard time getting rid of a timeshare that they have. I've never heard of anybody that's sitting on this Disney timeshare and they can't sell it. Nope. If you really want to get rid of your Disney timeshare within reason, you're going to be able to do so easily, I think.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, Panda, and that's something I really think, I honestly, there's two things in this world that I'll never understand. Why timeshares don't adopt a right of first refusal like Disney does to keep the bottom from falling them out and keep being that.
And why I haven't finished the Lego.
Right. Right. New in box, right? Mint condition. And the second thing is why cruises sell you a single portrait for like $45 when if they just did a photo pass, they'd sell way more of them. Those two things I will never understand. But the fact that they sell you this and then they immediately stop caring about that customer. I mean, they weren't caring about you when you were sitting in the room, to be fair. They were caring about their commission. But the fact that once you've signed that paper, you will never see that person again. You will never talk to that person again. And your timeshare is worthless the second you walk out, if you need to sell it.
I printed off a chart from a website that kind of tracks multiple different timeshares. And I would say there's about 10 timeshares on this sheet that I'm looking at right now. But at the bottom, they rank them by annual dues. They rank them by the number of resorts. That is something that Disney is probably on the low end of. Disney does have the lowest number of resorts compared to what some of these other exchanges or some of these other properties offer. Marriott's huge. And Wyndham has over 100 plus properties. Worldmark, 90 plus properties. So there is more options with some of these programs, but as Jeff has described earlier, that if you exchange into these, you're also going to have some fees that are associated with that. But the resale value column was the one that I thought was the most interesting, which is the only property that scored a high resale value is Disney.
Right.
Everything else, there are two modest, there are three modest, there are
2 lows and 4 that say none.
none.
No resale value.
No
Capital
resale
Vacation,
value.
Shell, Holiday Inn,
Yeah.
Blue Green Resort.
And this is why,
Worldmark.
Jeff, when you were talking about trying to maybe get out of the RCI timeshare or sell that timeshare, you're paying this company because that's the only money anyone is going to make off of selling this, because they're probably going to list it on like a resale timeshare market for a quarter, less.
Sometimes they list them for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take over the dues. You can have it. Yeah, and the cost honestly is tied to the title search and the title documents. The deed transfer. There's no other. That's just what it costs to transfer out of it in Vegas. If we own somewhere else, those fees might be different. But it's like, well, I can spend $400 this month and I'll have it for the whole year, or I can try and come up with $1,200 and get rid of it. But then there's paperwork and there. One day I'll use
They always keep you locked. It's keeping you locked in.
Go to Hawaii and it'll be worth it.
It's keeping you locked in. Yeah.
Yeah. It because it's too complex to do otherwise.
It makes sense. Yeah, and you're saving money by not getting rid of it. It makes sense. Well,
and
in the short term.
I'll share that we were asked, earlier this year to, investigate some other timeshares and kind of just research them a little bit. And the big thing that we came back with was just this, is just like, they're too complex. Like, Disney has made it, granted, like, there are a lot of nuances to Disney Vacation Club, and we share a lot of that with our audience. And I think that most members are much better educated today than they were maybe 10 years ago. But some of these other programs and how many there are, there's just so many variables at play where it's like, it would be a full-time job trying to figure out how to use this and would it even be worthwhile to educate people on it? Because I think my comeback that I kept coming back to was like, I wouldn't buy this. It's just, it's not valuable.
As an industry, they should have standardized the points. You're right. That would have made me feel like it was more legit. But like Jeff's saying, he's got 45,000 points and he can't do anything with them sometimes. That's crazy.
That's, to your point, Paul, like, how would you even figure out a swap program when this point is worth this and this point is worth 1,000? There's no, I don't know what that equation is, but I'm not smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah. And I have members that literally tell me stories that say, Derek, we love this club just because it's so simple and it's so easy that they do. Literally, members have said that their kids will will have a contest, right? To where they say, okay, guys, we have 200 points this year. So I want everyone to grab the point charts and all of you come back. And on this day, everybody present which vacation you think that we should take. So their kids literally plan and help them with
their plan,
and say like, hey, okay, Tommy says we should go to the Polynesian for 7 nights, and so-and-so says we should go to Saratoga and then maybe do a split stay and go over to the beach club and stay in this room. It is such an easy, simple club because you're not dealing with red weeks, blue weeks, purple weeks, different clubs or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Going down my list real quick, we've talked about just some of the differences and similarities. Long-term commitment is a big one we discussed earlier in the show, that if you are looking at a traditional timeshare, you're talking about a forever commitment versus Disney Vacation Club that does have, a fixed number of years left on it. I do still say that the flexibility that the DVC offers gives you more availability. If you want to exchange your points into RCI, you have the ability to do so. And they still, Disney Vacation Club, I think, keeps those relationships alive to basically say, well, yeah, like other timeshares, you can use them at 4 million different properties if you want to. Now, please don't buy Disney Vacation Club if that's how you singularly plan to use these points. Go buy Jeff Haslam's timeshare from him, and you'll probably save a lot of money.
Oh, I'll make you a deal.
I'll make you a deal.
But those are the big differentials between the two. But more than anything, going to kind of just some questions of, is timeshare right for you? Again, we've said this time and time again. Do your research into whatever that product is. If you find yourself in that timeshare meeting and you feel pressured into buying, and hopefully you go home and you Google and you stumble upon this show. Remind yourself that at the end of this, I told you that there is a rescission period on all timeshare contracts. That is by law, that is written into law, because timeshare is heavily regulated because of everything we have talked about in this show today. There are laws specifically in Florida, because we are like the timeshare capital of the world, in which there are many different terms. You have to be a licensed real estate agent to sell. Derek can sell you a house just as much as he can sell you used timeshare. But there are a lot of rules and regulations in place, and one of those is that rescission period. I forget off the top of my head. Is it 10 days? 10 days.
10.
Yeah. So you have 10 days from the time that you sign that contract that you can actually back out of that sale. Now, that will probably include another van ride if you purchase with some other timeshare company, and you will probably end up in a room again, and they'll probably take the tickets back at that point. Or if you've already seen the show, I don't know what they do in that case. But I think it's important to note that you do have that option to get out of it, but make sure that you research whatever it is. This is we've used the word investment loosely over time. It's an investment in your future vacationing. I don't think you should really consider it an investment because you are spending a large amount of money on these things. But Disney Vacation Club holds its investment in your future vacation, and I think that's the best way to maybe phrase it or think about it when it comes to the product in general. Or if you're not ready to try, don't buy, rent points. Just as we at the DVC rental store, you can rent points to stay in one of these properties from a member. You can rent at some of these other places, and you can rent Jeff's Stratosphere room. We've talked about Vegas too much, Jeff. I just feel like it
I know.
The jokes make themselves. I don't know where to go from here. Yeah,
I know.
I feel like I'm ending show on another Vegas note at this point. But,
well, here, let's end it like this. Just like with anything, your mileage is going to vary on how you use it, how you operate it, and what's best for your family. Amy's got a brother-in-law that absolutely loves his timeshare. He's gone to the Dominican Republic at least twice. He's gone to Cabo a couple times, Cancun a couple times. Absolutely loves it. Yep. He thinks he's saving money. I've tried to math it for him. It's fine. We agree to disagree. But your mileage is going to vary, So just make sure that whatever it is you're buying, whether it's DVC or whatever, just make sure that you do your research and don't make a $20,000 mistake.
But we'd love to hear about your $20,000 mistakes. So be sure to, in the comments of this video or over in our DVC fan Facebook group, to share your timeshare horror stories with us, because I want to create another episode that's all about them.
That would be great.
Yep.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, yeah, I was just kind of to tack on to what Jeff said too, is that I think what I liked about being able to do a show like this is not to sit here and say the best timeshare in the world is Disney Vacation Club and all the rest of them suck. That's not what this show is about, because we talk to people all the time. I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have other timeshares and love them. And the memories that they've made with them are phenomenal. So we are not here to say that those don't work. Are we saying the differences in them? Yeah. Are we saying that a lot of people will have that other traditional timeshare, but also maybe add on some Disney Vacation Club points to stay on Disney property? Because again, that trip, I have a lot of people that over the years say, I own a Hilton, I own a Marriott, whatever. So Derek, we have this week. But you know what? We bought like 100 points because we want like 2 or 3 days just to be on property, because it is different staying on property versus off. And the most important thing, just like Jeff said too, don't buy any timeshare if you're not going to use it. That's it. If you're not going to use it, don't buy it. It's the worst way that you can possibly spend your money, because every day I talk to folks when they have to sell their membership. Some folks will say, Derek, we've loved this thing. We've used it for the last 10, 15, 20 years. As you can see, we have no points available for 2025. We have no points available for 2026 because we've already borrowed them all, but we've loved it. 5 minutes later, someone will reach out to me saying, I need to sell my membership. You could see it's got like triple points because I didn't use the 2023. So I banked those into 2024 and I have all the remaining points going forward because we haven't used it for like the last 5 years. Don't buy it. If you're not going to use it, don't buy it. If you want to take vacations, Disney Vacation Club's the perfect reason, because you're like, God, I already paid for it, so I might as well use it because I'm spending money on it anyway. Yep. So regardless, whatever timeshare it is, use it. Go on vacation with your family because like I tell people every day, I'm just as important as a doctor, and it will save your life when you take vacation. I'm kidding.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the DVC Show.
Thank you, Dr. Derek. Dr. DeVore.
Please hit that like button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want more of these antics. I will say, on behalf of all of us, I think this show went much better than we anticipated it going.
It did, for sure.
It definitely it educated me. So thank you, Amy and her ex-husband, for buying that RCI timeshare so many years ago. Please don't be mad at Jeff for talking about it because it really educated all of us. But hit the like button. Subscribe to our DVC Fan YouTube channel. Behind the scenes content, patreon.com/DVC Fan. We will see you all next Monday. I pointed. I'm not allowed to do that. That's Jeff's thing.
Oh, I just...
Oh, you point.